Some ways that we can use SharePoint just beyond its traditional use of document management or collaborations within the SharePoint environment. Just to give an idea of what it is about, this is aimed to people that work with or for organizations that have a SharePoint, either on-prem or online, and a SQL Server. So that is the technology that we're going to use. I'm going to go through some real-world use cases that we actually implemented with actual customers to see how we solve a variety of problems that maybe SharePoint may not be the first thing you would think about in order to solve these things. At the very end, I'm going to just give a preview of the new tool also that we're working on at the moment, which is where we integrate SharePoint Document Libraries with a ChatGPT style of kind of interface. Quick agenda. Basically, I'm going to explain very quickly what we think the problem is that we solve with our tool SQList, and then how does this tool applies to the various use cases where we implemented it. I'm going to finish with just a few facts and then any questions that you have, but feel free to ask during the session. Okay, so what is the problem that we try to solve with SharePoint? At the moment, SharePoint is a fantastic platform. We store documents, data, we collaborate. It is also the foundation for a lot of tools that build on top of SharePoint. Power Apps now use SharePoint for a lot of things. So citizen developers now are using Power Apps that store and manage data in SharePoint. So after a while, we end up with a very large amount of data in SharePoint, usually scattered maybe across several sites, maybe on-prem and online, maybe some legacy SharePoint as well. So all this data is there. While it's in SharePoint, it's fantastic, but what we want to do, we want to actually use this data, a lot of times outside SharePoint, run reports on them. We have data from other systems in SQL Server that we would like to join together and make a big report or a dashboard about all the things. Or indeed integrate it, so use SharePoint to manage data that then are used by other systems later on and downstream and all that. Lately with AI, also we may want to integrate this data with AI, and having data in SQL Server would make it actually very good to query and prepare the data that we want to feed to this system. What is the problem? Connecting to SharePoint directly, when the data is, let's say, considerable, it becomes almost virtually impossible. Say that you have a list across different sites and you want to do a join. You have millions of items and you want to do a report. You have data on different versions of SharePoint and you want to use them together for a Power BI report, for example, or to run a query. That becomes basically impossible because SharePoint's got a limitation in itself. Like everybody probably knows the 5,000 item limit, throttling, performance in general. But also you have to go through APIs, which is slow by nature. So how do we solve this problem here? We put SQList. What it does is synchronizes the SharePoint data, list and library, into SQL Server tables. Keep them in sync, both data and structure. So that any changes that you do in SharePoint automatically gets replicated in SQL Server. You don't need to do any changes. You use SharePoint exactly as you do. You keep all your approval, the processes and everything running on top of it. But when you want to query the data, rather than go and connect to SharePoint and do all the various things that you need, you just have the data in SQL Server. You can connect directly to the tables. You can create views and then use the views for your reporting. If you have other systems, you can put them all together in SQL Server, do the joins. Basically, once you have the data in SQL Server, you can connect all those systems to the tables and you improve performance and also connectivity. The advantages, no limitations, so you don't have any of the limitations that you would have connecting directly. Performance is improved dramatically because SQL Server is actually a database built for queries, so if you have heavy stuff, SQL Server will handle it easily. And also connectivity, because literally every tool out there can connect directly to SQL Server, so you don't need to create a connector for that and a connector for that and a connector for that. So this is what the tool does. Once you have the data in SQL Server, there are a lot of things that you can do. And so in this, now I'm going to go through a few use cases where we're going to see how some of our customers having SharePoint SQL Server in-house, they just needed to install the tool, and then they were able to do a lot of the things that otherwise probably would have required investing in new system or changing or do much more heavy investment. So let's start. First use case. This is a common scenario in many organizations where you have different systems running, and they all have their own set of data. A lot of times, more than one system have a list of products or a list of funds or a list of customers. Maybe one system's got some data for the product, another system's got other. And what happens is that then when you create a new product, you need to go into each one and keep the tables up to date. What happens is, a common scenario is that you build custom jobs that keeps the data in syncs. And of course this works, but it can get complex when an update comes into places. You need to choose which one came first, which one comes after, and so how do we synchronize all that? What we did in this case, the company had SharePoint in-house, so what we did, we created lists in SharePoint for the common data, with all the information that they needed. Then these data were pushed through SQL Server, and then we created some views in SQL that matched exactly the tables used by the various systems. Once we had the same name and structure of the columns, basically we simply repointed the system to use the view rather than the tables, and so all the systems were using the data from one single source. This took away all the sort of confusion of where you update the data when you need to update something. So we introduced a single version of the truth, and also no more confusion who updated what, where, full control of access to the data, and also if you want to, you can put approval, so that you can actually put all the advantages of having data in SharePoint for this system. I'm going to give a very quick demo of how this works, just to give an idea of what happens behind the scenes. So over here, I have a SharePoint site. This is SharePoint Online, and there is this table called products. So there are different columns and different data in this list here. On these machines, we have SQList running at the moment. So the data are kept in sync to a database, SQL Server database that I have over here. So if we look at the product table, what it looks like that. I just selected top type, and this is exactly the same data that you have in SharePoint, in real time, up to date. What I created down here is two views on this data, where it still selects from the same table, but I have different data for each. This is the one that I was saying earlier that we created for different systems. Because SQList is running in the background, if I go now to, let's assume that I create a new product. I'm going to call it webinar screen or something. Oops, let me just put it properly. Let's call it screens. I'll give it a unit price of 345 and then stock 120. So you create your data in SharePoint. In here you could have approval, you could have anything that goes on with the way that you want to manage your data. But when you go to the SQL Server now, when you update, you will see that we have the screens over here with the data that you need for that table. And you have the other screen, the same ID here you see, that for the data that you have for the other one. It all works if you update, if you delete the items, if you add a column, if you remove a column, etc. So this gave a familiar UI in the company to maintain all your data, and we were able to actually interface different systems so that via SharePoint they were able to maintain all of that. Next, I'm gonna go. And this is where the views will be, right, in this example. The next use case was this one, yes. In this case, they had content in SharePoint, which some of them actually had approval on it. And they wanted to generate this content to be pushed to a public website. Not straight away, so somebody goes and updates the content in SharePoint, they want someone to actually check and say, yes, go ahead, push it live. Again, how did we solve this problem here? We installed SQList and then we configured it to push pending data to one database and approved data to another one, so that you have two completely separate databases. From there, a replica of the website, staging and live, one pointing to the pending data and one pointing to the production data. By putting this process, first, the data was in SharePoint. Whoever needed to update the data would update the data, but the person responsible for the approval, rather than having to go and check the data in this list, okay, this looks right, and then the other list, okay, yeah, this also looks like it, and so on, they would actually just go to straight to the staging website and check the end result. When they were happy with that, they would say, yes, I'm happy with it, approve all the content, and that would automatically push the data straight to the live database and immediately become live on the website. So there was no manual intervention, no jobs to be run to replicate the data from one to the other. Everything was again managed in SharePoint only. I just want to show you this functionality here. So over here I have a list that I call recipes. There are only 2 items. This list here has got approval. You can see here that there is the approval status over here. And it is being replicated to this table here. Okay. So you see the moment I have a staging recipes on top and the live recipes at bottom, and they have exactly the same data. Now I'm going to create a new recipes over here. So I'm going to say fish and chips. Okay, I'm going to put fish and chips. Fish and. Okay, let's assume that the website shows recipes and we want to create all this data in SharePoint and then take a look at what it looks like. Now, in here, you can see that the fish and chips went straight into the first table, but it won't go on the second one because it's not being approved yet. In the example that I was giving, this data would feed the staging website. So the big advantage is that you actually see exactly what it's going to look in the end, without having, say that you have data in 5 different lists. You need to go and check them all the 5. If you forget one or something, it's much more difficult. In this way, you have exactly the final result. Once the approver says okay, you simply go to SharePoint and where is it? Approve the change. That goes into approval. And if we refresh this one, give it a couple of seconds, and then you will see that it will come into the live site. There you go. So as you can see, it's a matter of seconds by the time you make a change and then it goes live. Again, also in this case, we were able to take away any data management through a tool or to running a particular jobs or anything, but put everything in SharePoint, so that basically all the knowledge in-house of SharePoint stays there. You don't need to teach a new interface or have new procedures or anything to maintain this data. Same for the SQL Server. Once you have the data in SQL Server, the knowledge is already in-house. So one advantage of this approach is that there is no learning curve to implement all these solutions here, because companies that have SharePoint SQL Server, they already have them in-house, all the knowledge for both environments. Moving on. Oh yes, one thing I didn't mention is the same approach could actually be used for if you have a dashboard in Power BI. you can have one that points to the pending data and one that points to the production, so you can all your update, look at the dashboards and say yes, they're okay, press the button and everything would go to a live record. Next use case. This is probably the most common use of this tool, which is when you have to handle a lot of very large SharePoint lists. In this case, there were more than 10 million in more than one list, and the main use was they wanted to do reporting using the data, using Power BI. Now, two problems here. One was that the list, once it becomes very large, it becomes even difficult to manage in SharePoint. You need to create views in order to limit the amount of data that you see, indexes and stuff like that. Also, to bring everything in SharePoint, you need to import everything in, which if you want quick updates and see data in real time, it becomes basically impossible because you have to press the button and wait for the whole thing to import and then reprocess the whole thing. So again, here we push everything to SQL Server again, so that all the items were in SQL Server, and then we were able to create reports directly from the table. Big advantage here was that you can use direct connection at that point, because you can with Power BI, SQL Server, you can use direct connection. So that you don't import all the data there, but you actually query directly from the SQL Server. Another way you can also do is that you actually can create a view in SQL and then do all the grouping, all the group by and everything, and then run the report of that. Additional things we did in this case. We configured this replication to keep the items in SQL Server even if they are deleted on the SharePoint list. So that, because SQList would of course delete items that you delete on the SharePoint side. In this case, we disabled that and we said keep it there. So that then the customers were able to create a job that trims these large lists. Because on the SharePoint side, they just need to see the recent data. They didn't need to keep all the 10 million items. So they created these jobs that regularly kept only the recent data here. But still, all the data, because they were kept in here, they were still available to the reports. At that point, the problem with managing the data in SharePoint was gone, and also the ability to have real-time reports in Power BI also was solved, because SQL Server at that point is built for these kind of things, and so it wouldn't have any problem in generating and linking all these kind of these data. I'm going to show you a very quick demo of this one as well. So over here, I have a list called big list. There are not a million items here, only a few 100,000 I think. But again, this list also is being currently replicated. And over here I have a very quick, this is how you can, once the data is in SharePoint, in SQL Server, rather than having to read the whole data, we can read just the grouping over here. And in here I have a report, a Power BI report that connects to the data and shows a single chart. You can see here group 4 is actually the largest one with a value of about 4 million. If I go into the list here, and this is group 4, so I'm going to take this group 3 and edit it, and I'm going to give it a value of 5.5 million, so that we make sure that it's going to be the highest value. Now, when we go back to the SQL report, to the Power BI report, when you refresh, you see immediately the data is already there. You see that now group 3 has gone as the highest, and the report immediately updated. Another thing to notice is this: the time that I take to refresh is literally immediate, rather than having to, if you had to import 10 million items, this would you would press the button and then go for lunch, basically. No, if you have a dashboard, Power BI with a lot of things, this would give you immediately the real time values of again, because everything is up to date. If I go here and I bring it back, just to give you an idea of the timings, if I bring this back to 500, like that, and then you go to the Power BI, There you go, it's already there. Okay, so this was, this is a very common problem that we found out in a lot of organizations using SharePoint, because after a while you do accumulate a lot of data, and especially if it is scattered a lot of lists, through a lot of lists, creating a joins for a report becomes really difficult. Okay, here is another case. This company had a system for trading data, and they wanted to run some reports, very heavy query reports. This system was generating a lot of data on the data, and they wanted to create some reports, mainly table-based for analysis in Excel or I don't really know exactly what they were doing afterward, but based on different metrics. So what we did, we created in SharePoint a number of lists for the metrics that they wanted to do, like countries or regions and everything. And then, using SQList, we put this data together with the data that they had from the trading system. From there, we created some very heavy-duty queries, joining multiple tables, doing a lot of group by and a lot of totals and stuff like that. And this is where the big advantage was, because the point SQL Server could actually handle these things easily. So all this data coming from here and from there were all put together. At that point, what we did here, in this case, then they used BCS to bring in the tables back into SharePoint as tables. So what did give them? They gave them access to very powerful reporting, very powerful, because these queries were actually very heavy, directly in SharePoint, without having to move out to another tools, to another system and everything. They were all there. From there, I think that they were then downloading to Excel or things like that. But the tables were there. You didn't even need to get to outside of SharePoint to have access, although they are table-based, so we're not talking about dashboards like in charts and stuff like that, but that is all they needed. They needed this summarized data available directly in the environment. And I'm just going to give you a very quick, a demo, just a view of an example of the kind of queries that you can query. If you look at the SharePoint side, you see here I have products, I have invoices, I have categories, groups, I have companies, all with clients, and all this. This is quite a whole set of lists that they are all linked together with lookup tables. If you look at over here, I have, so this is the kind of query that you can run at this point once you have the data, of course, in SQL Server, and everything up to date. So instead of having all these data are all in lists, and of course, being as SQL, you get the data straight away. From there, I don't have the example of BCS here, but you can use either BCS or the data is there. You can use it anywhere you need. And so this is next use case is actually, okay, so this actually ends the use cases of SQList as a real world use cases. And what I was trying to, I hope that I could show you that once you have SharePoint SQL Server in-house, you can actually use SharePoint to sort of also integrate with other systems or also enhance other systems, because all in a familiar interface, and with the advantage of full control that you have in SharePoint of who can access what, who can approve, and everything that is built on top of SharePoint, like if you have a Power Automated that run approval workflows or any other thing, it will still be handled because we sort of take from SQL Server, from the list over to the data. This is instead just a preview of something that we were able to do, because once we had the data in SQL Server, which is, by the way, it's perfectly normalized, so you don't need to map tables, but columns and everything. Literally, the tool takes care of creating and keeping up to date data and structure, so everything is in there. Once it's there, of course, you can run all the queries you want. What we did, we added a piece on top of it, for which we don't have a name yet. We actually had one, but it's been taken, so I just put GPT here. But what it does the additional processing from the data to the way that you need to process the data for AI, vectorize it, basically, for those familiar with the environment. And so we were able to actually create a tool that gives you an interface similar to ChatGPT to your document libraries in SharePoint. And I'll give you a demo of this one. So over here, we have let me just find it. Over here, we have a document library with some policies. These are document policies, internal company policies. This document library is being kept by this system, and we created a kind of an interface, which is this one, just to show the functionality of this tool. So in those libraries there are documents about holidays, about pension, about bringing your own laptop and everything like that. And the idea behind this is this, that at the moment, also in SharePoint, you have a lot of searches already, but they are basically keyword search. So you need to search something, you are given a list of documents, then you click the document, look at it, and find the information that you want. With all generative AI and language models that are now, obviously the approach is moving into something, ask a question and get an answer without having you to go look for the information. So an example here, I'm going to ask what is my maternity leave entitlement. Or actually, I'm going to ask something very precise. How many days can I take for maternity leave? Apologies for my typing, it's terrible. So this system is using that library there, so it doesn't go around and look for other information anywhere else. It will get information from your document library and then come with an answer that hopefully it will be the right one. Let's give it a second, there we go. So here it says that we have 52 weeks, broken into 26 and 26 for two different types. As you can see, the answer is very comprehensive. And down here we also have the links to the documents if you actually want to go and check it out. If you scan down here, you will see, there we go. You see that here there is the part about the 26. So the advantage of this approach actually is it's very precise. You don't say maternity, leave and stuff, and then you get a number of. It actually gives you the answer based on the actual document. And if you actually look at the answer here, it's a very, with AI you probably need to double check sometimes there are things, but it's very, very accurate. One additional advantage of this document library is built with SQList, which is kept in sync, and so this is constantly kept fed with the system. So if I go in here, for example, now I'm going to ask another question, which is how much does the company contribute to my pension? So I ask this question here. Let's see what it answers. Okay, as you can see here, it says, I'm sorry, I can't find any information, because actually there is not a document in the system for that. And that is very important, because it doesn't make up an answer. It doesn't say, oh, okay, you know what, blah, 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 and it gives you the pension or read somewhere else. It actually says, I don't know. And I'm going to show you now the advantage of having this kind of synchronization, because I'm going to go now to the document library here, Policy Hubs. And over here, let me just, this is actually a real policy hub of a company of information EXP, which allowed us to use it for a real case test. Over here we have a system. This is part of the policy hub system. And here we have a document that I'm going to now push to the library. So I'm going to go here, and there is a automate. And then give it a second, there you go. I'm going to now publish this document over to the library. Give us a second. Okay. So I'll just select the date. Okay. So now what this does is we publish the document into the library. So I'm going to go back to the documents and make sure that it's there. It should appear towards the end. It takes a couple of seconds to go to the, because what this does, it converts the PDF, the document to PDF. It goes through a process and then make it available. So let's just give it a few seconds. There we go. Okay, this is the last document. This is the one that we just uploaded. So at the moment, this document now is being fed through the system and is being properly indexed for the AI tool. If I go to our prototype, I'm going to ask the question again. Hopefully he will have processed it by now. It's not, with AI everything is a little bit slow because just the API themselves, we use OpenAI in this case, and they're not the fastest at the moment. But things will improve for sure. So I'm going to ask the question again. Fingers crossed. Oh, that ticking is makes me very nervous. He will come, he will answer. Okay, something is not coming up. Okay. Let me just check that everything is running in the background. That is running. That is running. So let me just refresh this and ask the question again. This is a classic example. It works until the moment before you demo it, and then no, it still doesn't find it. No, it's the correct answer actually. I thought it was so short that you can see that here it says based on the information, the companies will match the contribution up to 5% of the employee, etc., etc. Again, you can see that now, after uploading the document, it takes a little bit of time to go through, but basically, automatically, the whole document was processed without having to do any updates. We think that this is the way to go for document now, and in this case, for document libraries, especially because you can control security. Because one of the big issues now with this tool AI accessing documents is that I can ask a question and it answers with documents that I'm not allowed to see. So this system instead takes care of that. So you can only see what you can see. And also AI, this way of ChatGPT interface is where everything is moving. So I mean, we think that having certain interface on document libraries will make the documents much more accessible, rather than now that when you have thousands and thousands of documents, it becomes very difficult to find information. And then brings us to the end. Just a couple of things about the tool. What it does, so it synchronizes from SharePoint to SQL Server. One important thing is that you don't need to change anything in SharePoint, you don't need to change anything in your organization. You install it and then you will run. And also there is no learning curve, because you don't need to learn a new language or a new interface or a new tools to use, because SharePoint and SQL Server are already in-house. It supports all versions of SharePoint SQL Server. Another important thing is that it's installed in your environment, so you have complete control over the security. Your data are not going to go off to a server or anywhere. It replicates into your own SQL Server, so you have control of who can access it, what the tool can see, and all that. And it's licensed per installation. The license is perpetual. And one installation can connect to multiple SharePoint sites. So you could actually connect to a SharePoint on-prem for a legacy SharePoint, and then SharePoint Online, SharePoint from a different organization, and bring everything into your own SQL Server. And that's it. On our website you can download a trial if you want, or ask for a demo. All the information are there. We are also on LinkedIn if you want to keep up to date. A big thank you to the sponsor for this organization, which is absolutely a fantastic organization. We particularly love it. So thanks again to all the sponsors and all the organizers. And thank you. That was it. Thank you. I am a little bit early. Are there any questions, by the way, or anything that you would like to ask?
So does any software get installed on the SharePoint file at all?
No. The software, the tool, you install it on any machine as long as it can connect to SharePoint via HTTP. Basically, it connects in the same way that your browser would connect. Same security, same connections. Plus, it also supports Azure AD authentications and all those modern authentication methods for SharePoint Online. But you install it, and also it takes very little resources. That is a crucial part. It doesn't hammer your SharePoint, so there's no danger of throttling or anything like that. And it takes very little resources in the machine, because it doesn't load everything into memory or store in a local. There is no temporary storage in transit. It literally gets the data from here, sort them out, and push them to SQL Server. Another thing is, once it's up and running, the requests to the SharePoint site are minimal, because if there are no changes, it literally pings, it sees no changes, and that's it. If there is one insert, we just get that insert and put it to the SQL Server. So no complete rewrite or drop the tables and recreate it or things like that. If you do a delete, it will do one delete in SQL Server. So if you actually monitor the performance, you will see that you barely know it's there. In fact, some companies forget it's there altogether.
Presumably you have to reapply security trimming governance on the target SQL database.
Well, yes. The data is in SQL Server, then you decide who can access what. There is an advantage in creating a layer of view, because that allows you to actually control exactly who can see what. You can select which columns they can see. You can create a join and let them see only the view, so no access to the data underneath. So you have this layer where you can actually decide exactly the security to the data.
Does it synchronize any information for you to refer to in regards to creating a customized view? So security information from SharePoint pulled through?
No. The security information is not replicated. No.
Okay.
It does replicate the information of the user if you want. So you can actually all items on the database. Just so you know, if they contain. Let me just show you very quickly. Let me just do a select top star here. So over here you would have when it was created and modified, but also the ID of the author and the editor here. So you can actually know exactly who edited, created, and last modified the data, just like you do in SharePoint. It is possible to export the list of users, so you can join this ID with the users and then run all the auditing like that. It's okay?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much for coming, by the way. Thank you very much.